Hi everybody, welcome back to Julia at Home. This video is about handwork or handicrafts and how you can get started using them in your homeschool. There are many different kinds of handwork and I am not an expert in any of them. So this video is not about how to do a specific type of handwork. It is about how to choose handwork for your homeschool, how to get started with it, and some tips for teaching it. I will also be mentioning some resources and I will include those and probably more in the description box below, so make sure you look at that. Let's start with what is handwork. So a lot of us that talk about handwork or handicrafts, we're talking about a Charlotte Mason education and something that she wrote about as part of her education. She was talking about them using their hands to make something useful. So I looked up the definition of handwork here. The Cambridge English Dictionary definition of handwork is a skilled activity in which something is made in a traditional way with the hands rather than being produced by machines in a factory. So there is a lot that can go in there, right? And there are some that are considered more life skills, there's some that are considered more art. I tend to think of it as like kind of the cross between where life skills and art meet. So things like sewing, there's definitely art to it, but there's also definitely life skills involved. Same with like something like wood carving. I'll mention some more ideas in a little bit, but that's how I kind of think about it is I'm not including all life skills in this category, although some homeschoolers do and you can. And I'm not including all art in this category, which again, some homeschoolers do and you can. But we do both life skills and art separately as well. And so when I'm talking about handcrafts or handicrafts, I am talking about kind of where they meet and where they're using their hands to make something. Why do I teach this? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, there are some basic skills I want my children to learn, such as with sewing. I would like them to be able to sew so they could do a basic hem if they needed to, or sew a button back on. I also just want to expose them to all these different crafts now, and then they might really enjoy one and pick it up as a hobby now or even come back to it later in life. I also think there's a real benefit to the brain to use this hand-brain connection, to learn something new, to learn to do something with your hands. Connected with that, part of my main job as a homeschool teacher is to help my kids learn how to learn. We're constantly learning through life. The world is constantly changing, so we constantly have to learn new things to keep up with it. It also makes life more interesting, more fun, and helps keep our brain working as we get older. Now that we have a little bit of idea what it is and why we're teaching it, well, let's talk about how we teach it. So, how do you decide what handwork to teach? That's step number one. There's several factors I think about. What is important to you? Again, I've mentioned sewing. We've done that as part of our handwork, and there's some important skills to me there that I want them to learn. What are they interested in? If your kids are interested in something, run with it. Also, what do you know how to do? Because if you know how to do it, it's going to be easier to teach it, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. Also, if it is something you know how to do and you are interested in, the kids will pick up on your interest as well, and that will help them as they keep going and learning what can be frustrating sometimes. Of course, you're going to want to keep in mind the age and developmental level of your children. It's going to depend on your child, right? My 3-year-old really wants to get involved with things, and I'm not going to give her an actual sharp needle to use because I feel like that puts her at more risk of hurting herself, and she's just not ready yet. So what are some ideas for handwork? Well, I've mentioned sewing a couple times, so I'll come back to that. We've also done some embroidery or cross stitch. Those are a little bit more advanced. There is origami or paper sloyd. There's knitting and crochet, and that I highly recommend starting with either finger knitting or using like a knitting fork or something like that. And you kind of make these long chains of knit yarn. So that's a really good one to get started with for the younger age group. There's also, I mentioned wood carving before. There's soap carving that you could get started with first. There's weaving. You can find some small looms that you can get for your children. You can also just make some out of just like string and cardboard or various things. Pottery, we haven't done this yet, making bowls and vases and things like that, like you might do on a wheel. Making different kinds of jewelry could be a handcraft. You can start with like doing the knotted bracelets and necklaces and then later add doing beading. Making baskets, doing macrame is another one, and leathercraft. So those are an example. It's not an exhaustive list. I'll have some sites linked below that have even more lists to them, but those are ones that I think of as handcrafts and some that we have or may want to explore in the future. Okay, so now you've talked to your children, you've thought about what's important to you, you've thought about what you are interested in, and you've decided on a handcraft to start with. So what do you do next? Well, my first question is, do you know how to do it, or are you good at it? And if so, that is fantastic, and you should teach it yourself. So what I'd recommend is breaking things down into small steps. So again, we've done sewing as the one we've done the most, so I keep coming back to that as an example. But there's different kinds of stitches in sewing, right? There's the running stitch, we started with that. There's the back stitch. Those are the two main ones that I wanted my children to know. So we practice just doing those. And so that's the example of just break things down into small steps and practice each small step one at a time. And then once you've gotten enough steps, I wouldn't wait too long. Pick a simple project that they can do. So with sewing, we actually made this little bag. And I will mention the resource that we used for some of our sewing. We had done a little bit already. There's a Simply Charlotte Mason series of videos you can get on different handwork. And so we did get and use their sewing video, and that's what these bags are from. This is my daughter's. This was during her 3rd grade year. I think she was 8, 9 when we worked on this. So if you're teaching it yourself, make sure to break things down into small steps and then choose a project. It could be the bag, it could be sewing a pillow or a little stuffed animal even. So there's lots of ideas of what you could do. If you don't teach it, but maybe you have a close friend or family member who teaches it, that is another option. So again, same steps, have them break it down. That is a great just bonding activity. Let's say you have like a grandparent, and then you could like maybe have them come over once a week and do the handwork. You could even have them do it over Zoom. We have the technology nowadays. Just a quick note that if you are finding this helpful, go ahead and click that thumbs up button below. It lets YouTube know that you liked it and lets me know that you liked it as well. So thank you. Now for me personally, I dabble in a lot of things, so I'm interested in them, but I don't feel like I'm good enough to teach them. And for most things, we also don't have a family member that knows how to do it well enough to teach. And so we are so fortunate to live in this age. There are so many resources out there. You're watching this on YouTube. You could search for YouTube videos for beginners about a variety of subjects, and there are some really, really great ones out there on how to do basic things, basic handwork skills. So once you've chosen what you want to do, I would do a quick search. Always watch something before you show it to your kids, but there are some really, really great creators out there. In addition, I've mentioned there's Simply Charlotte Mason has the handwork series, so that's a good place to start as well. And then there's kits. So I'm going to show you a couple here. This is one my daughter has been learning Learn to Crochet. This is the Woobles kit. And this is great because it comes with video instructions, so she can go back and look at those. And it came with the yarn and a crochet hook, and there's also stuffing in there because she's gonna stuff it in the end. And they have many options, so I had her choose which she wanted to do. She, of course, chose the rainbow dinosaur. This is something my son actually just got for the holidays, and this is a soapstone carving kit of a cat. He loves cats. And it comes with like a file and sandpaper and wax. The shape in soapstone is kind of roughly made, and then I think they're supposed to refine it. I'll have these linked below as just some ideas. I've also used some We Are Knitters sets. I've made little like hats and stuff from them before, and those come with, again, instructions as well as all of the supplies you would need as far as needles and yarn and such. So those are ones that I know of and have used. We've also gotten some little like cross-stitch and embroidery kits that I've picked up from various, usually gift shops when we go places. So you can just look around for things like that. There are just so many options though. I know there are many that I don't know. So if you know of a really good one that you would like to share, please do so in the comments below. It could help everybody out. A couple of additional tips. First is to choose something that is useful or could be displayed in your home. Charlotte Mason talks about this a little bit, about how she doesn't want it to be something frivolous. I forget the word that she uses, but it should be something useful, is I believe how she puts it. And I think it could be something beautiful. I don't think it has to be like a bowl that you put something into, or a spoon, or a bag, although those things are all really good ideas, and useful things are great. It could be something you display on your wall, but I think the idea is not to make it something that's one of those simple crafts that the children might do that you might hang up for a week or two and then ends up going in the trash. It should be something that is, if it's something that you're going to just display, it should be something a little more enduring that you'd want to display for a longer period of time. Kind of a better quality is what we're going for here. And I think that that really gives you and the children more motivation when you're doing this, and also it's a sense of pride at when they finish in the end. This is something I made that you can use here, and then that you can use it in your home, you can give it as gifts. That's some Charlotte Mason advice that I like to follow when doing handicrafts. Another tip is more logistical. When do you do this? So we're homeschoolers. You'll have your own routine, and so you'll have to figure out how to fit it in there, but a couple tips as part of this. One is to keep your sessions short, especially when you're first starting. These can be really frustrating, I think, for both children and adults. And so keep the sessions short, and that will reduce some of the frustration if they just have to focus on it for a short amount of time and stop before they get tired. And that's actually like a Charlotte Mason general tip, is that she would often have all of her subject lessons be short because you want the kids' full attention during that time. Along with that, I would do it regularly. You could do it daily. I would say do it at least weekly, but it's of course going to be what works for your family. When we first started, I was having them do it a couple times a week. Now, the way our routine is going, I have them do it most days as part of their individual school subjects. But I think if you do it less often than let's say weekly, you could really kind of lose the thread on what you're doing, no pun intended, and kind of get lost in it, and it would make it a little bit harder. My final tip is that the children will probably need help at some point, especially the younger ones. This is a new skill they're learning, and you might not know how to do it. So I encourage you to learn along with your kids and help with humility. It's going to take some patience. There may be some moments of frustration. Don't let that stop you. I encourage you to just try to help and push forward together, and also use it as a learning time for how we can persevere and learn new things, learn hard things. So that's another, I guess, benefit of handwork. But as the teacher and the parent, we need to try to be as patient as possible. I will admit I'm not always, but I do strive to be, and I think it really helps the whole process just be more peaceful and go a lot smoother. So there you go, some tips to get you started with handwork. Please let me know what you are doing for handwork in your homeschool. I'd love to hear all the different things. Also, make sure you ask any questions that you have, and share anything you want to share. If you are wondering it or have experience with it, it's quite probable that somebody else is wondering it too. Wishing you all health and happiness as we start this new year of 2023. Until next time, friends, I'll talk to you later.